We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, brought to you by our good friends at MyBookie. Guys, go to mybookie.ag right now. Sign up for a new account. Use our code UGA when you do so, and your first bet is going to be fully covered, all the way up to $500. It's a great deal, guys, so jump on it while it lasts. And today on the show, I've got my top 10 takeaways from Georgia's 9th consecutive win in the Deep South's oldest rivalry, including why I believe this 20-10 road win over Auburn put on full display why this 2025 Georgia team is still a championship contender. So we got a lot to talk about today, guys. Before we do any of that, if you're a diehard Georgia fan, and if you're watching this video, I know you are. So go ahead, subscribe right now if you haven't already. Turn those notifications on. Got a ton of content designed for all you Georgia diehards coming your way the rest of this season and beyond. So make sure you don't miss any of that content. Subscribe, notifications, like, comment. What are your biggest takeaways from this win over Auburn? I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. But all right, guys, quickly here, I do want to say one more thing. Thank you for your patience. Those of you who've been following this channel all season long and watching all the recap episodes, first off, thank you so much for that. But if you're wondering why this episode's a day late, you know I usually publish these on early Sunday evening for you guys. My voice is in bad shape yesterday, guys. Coming out of the game, combo of allergies that have been really getting me the last couple of weeks here. And then the game on Saturday night with the way it ended and just going crazy. My voice was shot Saturday night. I was hopeful that, hey, go to sleep, get a good night's sleep, wake up Sunday, and we're good to go. No, worse. So basically couldn't talk at all yesterday. So did the hydration thing. Got my water here today to help me get through today's episode. In fact, let me take a little sip right now. I keep that thing hydrated. The lemon water thing, all that stuff, all things I can do to rehab the voice. And it got better and better as the day went on. So here I am. I think I can get through this. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate you guys there. But we do have a lot to talk about, guys. So let's dive in. I have distilled a ton of information into my top 10 takeaways from this win over Auburn. So let's start at the top here with my number one takeaway. Kind of a big picture look at this win. As ugly and disjointed and imperfect as that win over Auburn was on Saturday night, I do think that win put on full display why this 2025 Georgia football team is still, despite all of its flaws, despite all the moments where we're like, oh my God, is this team going to lose 4 or 5 games this year? A lot of you were saying that during the games. I saw it on social media, right? One of my best friends texted me, minimum 5 losses this year. I'm like, at this point, I don't even know if I can argue with it. But that win put on full display why this Georgia team is still, flaws and all, a championship contender in 2025. And on my prediction episode last week, at the end of last week, thank you guys for checking that out. I told you guys on that show that I thought that this would be a tight game with swings going back and forth. And I also predicted that this would be a game where Georgia would ultimately win because despite the tightness of the game, despite the swings back and forth, and no, I didn't know it was going to swing as wildly as it did from the first half to second half, with one team dominating the first and one team dominating the second. But I told you on that episode that this would be a game where when it comes down to it at the end of the game, in a tight game, on the road in a hostile environment, that this Georgia program would flex its championship DNA. And that's exactly what happened, guys. I don't always get it right. I get a lot of things wrong. When you talk as much as I do here on this channel, on the Glory UGA podcast, you get some things right, you get some things wrong. I got that one right, guys. Georgia flexed that championship DNA. So many teams, so many programs, so many coaches, so many players individually fold in that situation, guys. Down 10-0 late in the second half with your team knocking on the doorstep on the 1-inch line of going up 17 right before halftime. Most teams, most coaches, most players just give into it. They let it get away from them. They get swallowed by the adversity. But it's just not in this Georgia team's DNA, guys. That's not what this program is about. It's not in Kirby Smart's DNA. And he has built this program in his image. This program, this team, these players, their head coach, guys, like they reflect the head coach. Kirby cultivates this DNA. It doesn't happen by accident, guys. He cultivates it, he demands it. So, like, if you think that this team, because I know obviously opposing fan bases, Auburn, fans like that, they're going to think this. But if you think this team, this program, just accidentally responds to adversity, both within and between games, guys, like, yeah, we might lose a game here or there, but we bounce back in a big way the next week. Look at Ole Miss last year, guys, got whipped. Bounce back, Tennessee, big home game, top 10 team. We win that game, guys, right? We do it time and time again. After Mississippi State last year, everyone's like, oh my God, Georgia's terrible. Going to number one Texas, we're going to get killed. We respond, baby. Respond in a big way. So it's within games and between games. It doesn't happen by accident, guys. If you think that, I honestly don't know what to tell you. I really don't. This never say die, the fight to the death attitude and mentality and DNA of this team, we do it time and time and time again. So if you think it's, again, accidental, you're either A, not paying attention, B, agenda driven, or C, just delusional. That's always an option too. Because again, I want you to think about this the last 2 years, guys. I'm not even going back 6, 7, 8 years. I'm going back 2 seasons, a year and a half, guys. Go back to last year, 2024, all on the road, week 3 against Kentucky. I know it's Kentucky, guys. I know. That's a road SEC game at night. We were on the freaking ropes, man. First half, guys, I've told you several times, I died like 9 times in that stadium that night. I don't even know how I'm still here today after that game. That game about killed me, y'all. But we found a way. We found a way on the road when we didn't have our A game, we didn't have our fastball to win that game on the road at night. And I know it's Kentucky, right? Guys, that can be a tough place to play at night. I'm telling you. You've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Alabama last year. Yeah, we lost the game, right? Get down 28-0. It's from a 28-point lead in the first half. How many other teams against Alabama on the road at night in prime time would have the fortitude and the ability to fight back and almost win that game, guys? Like, come with an eyelash of winning the game, taking the lead, yeah, giving it back up. But even once you give it up, come right back up again and almost win the game. Carson Beck was a little bit better of a back shoulder fake, probably win the football game, right? How many teams do that? Right? That's not an accident. Texas last year, yeah, we come out swinging, right? After Mississippi State game, people are down on Georgia. We come out swinging. We take it to them early in that game. We build our own big halftime lead. But Texas comes roaring back in the second half. Then you have the ridiculous officiating situation. Texas fans throwing stuff on the field, right? Interception gets overturned, and it is what it is, right? And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, at that game, you know what I'm talking about. Place was rocking after that. It was dead before that. After that, rocking. What do we do? Back in our territory, third long, we deliver and we put together a drive that ultimately pushes us over the top and wins that football game. Tennessee last year, guys, get down 2 scores early in the game to a top 10 team, a playoff team. We come back, win that game. Georgia Tech last year, guys, down 17-0 against a team. When you get down to Tech that way, a team that runs the ball like they do and just grinds clock, it is exceptionally difficult to fight back. Fight back, we win that game. Going to 8 overtimes to win the game. SEC championship last year, guys, down at the half. Your starting quarterback, your preseason Heisman contender, your preseason maybe future #1 overall draft pick, probably not now, but there was a thought process at the time, and maybe that was the case. He goes out with injury. Now you got a guy that had to start a football game, hasn't played much real football in 3 years, comes in the second half, and you come back and you beat Texas on the road or in the SEC championship game. Yeah, that's a skill, guys. This year, Tennessee, we saw it down 14-0, come back, win that game. They give us another punch late in the game. We come back, we win the game in overtime. We thought we were dead, but we weren't, because this Georgia team's DNA just isn't that, right? Alabama, yeah, again, we lost that game. Once again, down 14-0, fight back. We beat ourselves there late in that game, made some mistakes that we shouldn't have made. That's on us, but we still fought back and almost won the game. And in Auburn, of course, we all know what happened on Saturday night. Now, all that to be said, guys, doesn't mean that Georgia can't lose. Of course we can, guys. Clearly, we are not as dominant as we once were. Going back to 20, 21, 22, 23, when we lost, what, like twice in 3 years, right? 21, 22, and 23. We're not as dominant as we once were with NIL, the transfer portal, the way that has kind of revolutionized college football. No team's as deep, right? Guys don't sit and wait. They transfer out. They want to play. Watching Alabama Missouri game on Saturday, guys. Yeah, it would have been great to have Damon Wilson Jr. on this team this year, right? A couple years ago, he would have been on our team. But now, NIL transfer portal, he's out the door. Aaron Smith Jr. also at Missouri. So it's just kind of the same thing, guys. So, again, we can lose. We're going to lose games. It happens. We've lost 4 times now in the last year and a half. We lost twice in 3 years from 21 through 23. So yes, I'm not telling you that this is the best team in the country, that Georgia is the best team in the country. Georgia should be the national title favorite. That's not what I'm telling you guys, because I don't think that's the case right now. This is a flawed team with real issues at spots that I have diagnosed for you and talked about all throughout this season. But here's the thing, guys. I've also told you this. Yeah, this Georgia team is flawed, but so is literally every other team in the SEC. There's not one team in this league that does not have real flaws that can be exploited, that can lose on any given Saturday. Not one team. If the Ole Miss was one of those teams that was really good, they are really good. We break them down all week. They almost lost to a bad Washington State team at home, guys. Like every team in this league has flaws. There is not a perfect team, including Georgia. But Georgia has something that I don't believe anyone else in the SEC currently has. That championship DNA. Now, I know Alabama fans will say, well, what about us? Like, we've got 317,000 championships. I understand the history of Alabama, guys. I'm talking about currently. Yeah, Bama's beaten Georgia 2 years in a row. And however many times in a row now. Like, yeah, obviously, I understand that. But this is not Nick Saban's Alabama program. You saw Alabama lose games in ways they never would have under Nick Saban. Never. So yeah, they're going to win games, but they're also going to lose games in ways that you don't see Georgia losing games that like at Oklahoma last year, a bad Oklahoma team. You don't see that, guys. You saw Georgia almost lose game to back Kentucky team last year, but you saw Georgia find a way to win. So I think this Georgia team has that championship DNA, the ability to, and also not just the ability to do it, but the knowledge that they can fight back and win out of any circumstance. And I truly do not believe that other teams in this league have it the way that Georgia has. The unwillingness to accept anything less than their absolute best shot, fighting to the absolute death. And in an era of enhanced parity, where games are tighter and tighter than they ever have been before in this league, week in and week out, that abso-freaking-lutely matters, guys. Absolutely. It absolutely gives Georgia an edge in every game. Of course it does. And combine that with the fact that Georgia is still maybe not the most talented team in the country. Maybe the talent gap between Georgia and other teams in the SEC isn't like here and here like it used to be. Maybe it's now like here, okay. But Georgia still has the talent to win a national title, to win a title. We have this championship DNA. We still are one of the more talented teams in the country, certainly in the SEC. Yeah, we're banged up bad on the offensive line right now, but this is also a team that routinely gets better as the season progresses. Once we start to get healthy, now that we've gotten past our two biggest road tests of the year, there's still plenty of tests left on the schedule, guys. It ain't like Ohio State and Indiana and in Miami, where you look at their schedule the rest of the way, they don't play another currently ranked team the rest of the season. That ain't what we got here, guys. You got Ole Miss this week. Florida's not going to be ranked, but it's still a dangerous team in a rivalry game. You've got Texas, you got Georgia Tech, and Tech might have one loss, maybe undefeated. Who knows by the time we get to them? But we've gotten past the two toughest road tests for sure. So you combine the talent with that championship DNA, you have the makings of a legitimate championship contender. Again, not telling you it's the best team in the country right now, but this team has the ability to potentially maybe get there. We've got a lot of football left, guys. A lot of time for this team to grow and get healthy and continue to sharpen the things they need to sharpen. But we have that DNA that we need, that we can draw on in games like this. So you're going to win national title, guys. You're going to have games like this. A lot of teams, when they get there, aren't going to have played anything close to this, but Georgia will have. We've been tried, we've been tested, and we've proven that we can get through it, not to everyone else, but to the team itself. They've proven it, they know it, and I think that is a skill, and I think that is a huge feather in Georgia's cap the rest of the way. All right, with that, let's move on here, guys. Big takeaway number 2. Georgia won that football game, guys. I am very tired. I was only 48 hours later, almost 48 hours, of hearing this idea that Georgia, quote, stole that one. Kind of like when you heard that same refrain after the Tennessee game. Georgia stole that game. I didn't like that notion coming out of the Tennessee game. I like it even less in this game. Now, I do think it's fair to say if you watch college football, like I know all of you do on a regular basis, if you watch all these games, I do think that teams tend to lose games more than they win them. What I mean by that is it's not always the teams just go out and take the game from the opponent. Oftentimes, teams make mistakes that allow their opponent to win. Okay, but I don't think that's what happened here, guys. I think Georgia went out on the road in a really tough environment and won this football game. I know Kirby himself was caught on mic saying after the game, like when he's greeting his family, "Oh, we stole that one." And I get in the moment that's how he felt. I get that. And like, admittedly, like myself, I felt that for a second after the game. But the more you reflect on, the more you think, go back and rewatching the game, guys. Like, yes, the Auburn fumble helped. Obviously, it's about to be a 17-0 game going into the half. That's a 10-point swing there. But that fumble was the definition of a forced fumble. That was an intentional play by Georgia, by CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson both. They were intentionally trying to punch that ball. That wasn't one of those plays. Sometimes the guys fumble, they just like get hit. The defender's not actually trying to like get the ball out. It's just like it's just a function of getting hit, maybe not holding the ball tight, and then you give the team a turnover, give your opponent a turnover. If that's how that would have happened, I would have given maybe more credence to this idea. Maybe Georgia stole that one. Guys, that was something that we practice. That's something that our coaches, as detail oriented as they are, said, all right, guys, punch this ball out. Also, again, going back to this championship DNA, how many teams backed up in that spot with the crowd against them in that situation, about to be down 17-0 right before the half, bow their necks and make that play? How many other teams, how many other programs, how many other players just let teams, you put up a little bit of an effort, but then you just get pushed out, pushed in the end zone, touchdown, right? Not this Georgia team, right? That was an intentional play by the Georgia defense. And what I mean by that is that was more about Georgia making a play on that particular play, that fumble, than it was Auburn not making a play. And if you look at the second half, guys, that complete turnaround that happened from the first second half, that is an accidental. That's also, again, going back to the reflection of what I talked about with my first big takeaway. Adversity struck Auburn, right? How did they respond? Yeah. What did their head coach say in his halftime interviews? Like, obviously, the game didn't hear that, but you see it on the rewatch just whining, man. Oh my God, yeah, I remember that Oklahoma game. We should have. He didn't say that. But he's thinking that, right? You could see in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but instead of saying, no, we got to go back. We got to fix things. We can't make those mistakes, and we got to come out swinging in the second half. He's just complaining, right? And that filters over to your team, guys. Come on, yes, it does. In the second half, Auburn didn't hold itself to 10 rushing yards on 11 rushes, less than 1 yard per rush. They didn't hold themselves to 50 total yards and essentially 2 yards per play in the second half. Georgia did that. Had to make some adjustments, but Georgia did that in that hostile environment. So I don't like this notion that Georgia just stole one. No, Georgia went and took that game from Auburn. The Dogs won that football game. All right, number 3 here. Let's talk about the officiating. I know a lot of you want to get there, and I know at this point, a lot of you probably have probably said your fill on this, but let me get my thoughts out here on this officiating. Yes, big takeaway here, number 3. It was a poorly officiated game. I'm not going to suggest otherwise. It certainly was, guys. It's par for the course in the SEC. If I remember correctly, it was the same crew that did the Texas Georgia game in Austin a year ago. At least the same head judge, I believe there. But it was a poorly officiated game. The fumble heard around the world. Let's go there. It was, let's just start with this. It was 1,000% a fumble. You'll never convince me otherwise. I know Auburn fans, you're never able to convince them that it was a fumble. I keep seeing these still shots on social media right now. Why are we putting still shots up, guys? That's not going to show you anything. Show the full clip. Show the full clip and watch it with an open mind. Actually, open your eyes and watch what's happening. You will see that it wasn't one punch, it was 2 punches. The announcers themselves just willfully ignoring that there were 2 punches on that play, guys. CJ Allen comes in with a right hook, then that lodges the ball loose. It's moving around in Arnold's arms before he crosses the goal line, and then it's Raylan Wilson with the left that punches the ball out, which is what they were all talking about, and that's all they could see for whatever reason. But if you look at both punches, I know CJ's kind of hidden there because he's kind of on the interior and Raylan was kind of on the edge there. But that ball was coming out when Raylan hits it. The officials got that play right. What they got wrong, they got the fumble right. What they got wrong is that it should have been a Georgia touchdown. No whistle had been blown, guys. As far as I can tell in the replay, you're listening, no whistles. When the rest are all sitting there watching it, like, huh, what's? And you can see one ref like pointing at the ball, like, oh, it's out, it's out. No whistle was blown. It was a clear and obvious recovery by Georgia. He clearly wasn't down. I know one of the explanations that he said on the TV copy was that The official must have thought he was down. Guys, if they thought he was down, that can be reviewed, and that play should have been reviewed. So that would have been a mistake on the officiating as well. It's just nonsensical. There is no explanation, no adequate explanation for why that was not a Georgia touchdown. That play ultimately doesn't matter, so whatever. But it could have mattered, and that was a poor officiating situation there. The timeout situation that people online, God, man, it's hilarious to watch this, man. It has people online moving Kirby Smart into the ranks of like Hitler and Stalin on the list of all-time villains in world history. Like that is how people are making this out to be right now. It is just so overblown. Now, if you watch it, guys, go back and watch it. I will admit that Kirby's hand motions are ambiguous at best. And honestly does look more like he's signaling for timeout than clapping, right? And Kirby kind of claps like this anyway, if you watch a guy closely. But it's ambiguous at best, but I think it does probably look more like he's calling timeout than he's clapping there. But if you watch it closely, it's also very clear while he's doing this that he's not saying timeout, timeout, timeout. He's saying they're clapping, they're clapping, they're clapping, they're clapping. All right. So how do you make sense of that? I think this is just me speculating. What probably happened there is that in the moment, as Kirby is running towards the referee in that situation, as he sees them clapping, which they are doing illegally, as he's running towards the ref in the situation, as he's done so many times over the last decade in his career as a head coach, the muscle memory kind of clicked in, and he's like, oh, and just like he's used to doing this when you run towards the ref, right? And clapping, timeout, like you're moving your hands together. There's something similar there. But either way, guys, it should have been one of two things. What happened should not have happened. It should have either been a timeout for Georgia, awarded Georgia if that's what they deem Kirby doing, or B, a penalty on Auburn for breaking the rules and clapping defensively when they should not have, right? Well, it's disconcerting signals is what they call it now, right? And I think what happened here is the refs, once the play was stopped, I think the head judge knew that it should have been a penalty on Auburn. I think he knew that. But since they didn't make the call in real time, I honestly believe they're human guys. I think the officials, especially after the blowback they got in the stadium and from like Auburn's AD on the field screaming at the refs, going to the locker room at halftime, I think they were terrified of invoking the wrath of that crowd in the Auburn sideline. So they took the easy way out. That's my read on the situation. So they took the easy way out. Like, we don't want to charge Georgia timeout because we shouldn't, because it's not their fault, because the Auburn is kind of cheating over there. But we don't want to incur the wrath of this crowd. So let's just say redo. Let's do over, right? That's in my book kind of what happened there. But it's so much more than just those plays, guys. Obviously, those are the headliners. I want to quickly talk about the blindside block call on Cash Jones. I thought that was the most egregiously bad call of the entire game. Auburn fans, I know what they're going to say about what they think are the two worst calls, obviously, as we went over there. But from a Georgia fan perspective and somebody who's just trying to watch, I mean, I'm a Georgia guy. I'm not going to lie to y'all. But objectively, go watch that call, guys. That's absurd. The guy is looking directly. Cash is in his line of view. Cash gets his head and doesn't have to doesn't come from an angle where the Auburn defender couldn't see him. He's in his line of view. Puts his head in front of the Auburn defender, gets in his way, and we call blindside? What what are we doing? Come on, guys. That was right after the timeout thing. So that was to me, that was the refs trying to make up for that, trying to make everybody happy. Because again, they're human. I'm convinced they do these things. And that literally took points off the board for Georgia. So I think that was the most egregiously bad call of the game. But there were other little things, ticky-tack things. I thought they should have called a pass interference on the Auburn DB on one of the plays in the second half down the field to Noah Thomas. I thought he was at least a holding. He was clearly pulling him. Of course, Greg McElroy going back and doing the TV rewatch, TV copy before the All-22 rewatch, talking about, yeah, he grabbed it, but I'm okay with no call. Well, if he grabbed him, why are we okay with a no call? If you grabbed him by the letter of the law, you're grabbing the receiver. That's holding. That's defensive holding. So whatever. But that's a minor thing. Ultimately, Georgia won, but it was once again another poor effort by SEC officials. Can we not make these guys full-time? Come on, guys. It's out of control. It's getting ridiculous now. All right, moving on here. Number 4. Yes, another slow start for Glenn Schumann and company on the defensive side of the football. Guys, I understand it's frustrating. I do. It had one of my best friends who, like me, is very passionate about these things, but sometimes maybe lets his emotions get the best of him in some of these situations. He wasn't at the game. He was texting me during the game. And, I mean, he was firing everybody. He was convinced, he's like, dude, we gotta fire Kirby. It's like it's over, man. Like I was like, oh yeah. He's like, no, I'm serious. We gotta fire Kirby. And he's like, but Schumann's definitely got to go. Like he can't even get back on the team plane, the team bus. And I'm like, all right, man. So I understand that it's frustrating and everyone wants answers. And guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's frustrating for me too, as a Georgia guy, sitting there watching this, and especially big games like this, the emotion of the moment, being in the environment there, and just like we all care so much about these games. It's frustrating to get into these holes. No doubt about it. I'm with you on that. But here's where I think I differ with some people. The more I break this down, the more I watch it, guys, the more I think about it, the more I reflect on these slower starts defensively. I do not think that these slow defensive starts are indicative of some deeper issue within the Georgia defense and indicative of maybe Glenn Schumann not being up to the job. Honestly, and you don't have to agree with me on this, and that's fine. This is my take, okay? I think it's a function of prep times for opposing offenses. I told you guys last week, I screamed it from the loudest mountaintop I could find. I screamed it at everyone who I could possibly get in front of last week, and really all offseason long too, that I thought the non-mutual bye, Auburn having a bye week coming to this game, and Georgia not having a bye week ahead of this game, was a massive advantage for Auburn. I'm a big believer in the advantage bye weeks give teams anyway. And if you have a team like a coach like Hugh Freeze, for whatever he is, man, like he's got his issues, but he has been good coming off buys, and he does usually have a nice bag of tricks and pull some things out, throw some wrinkles at you offensively coming out of a bye week, especially when you don't have a bye. So that was one of the big reasons why I was concerned about this game. Not just the fact that it was on the road at night. That had me freaked out enough. But you add in the buying equation to it, the non-mutual bye week situation, that was a big reason for concern for me, because that gives them an extra week to dive into what we do defensively. It gives them more time to identify our pressure packages, to get familiar with them, to design ways to attack them, to identify the fronts we like to use and figure out ways to attack them, to figure out our down and distance tendencies, all those things. And they were able to use that time to put together a great plan for those first three drives. And guys, when they put together a great plan, they did some things, made some adjustments that maybe we weren't quite ready for. Admittedly, obviously we weren't. We had to react to it. And guys, the reality is defensively, as an old defensive coach myself back in the day, a long time ago, defense is usually, so I love defensive football, man. Like that's my background. But defense is also usually the more reactive side of the football. You react to what the offenses do. Now, defensively as a coach, do you want to dictate the offense? Yes, ideally. That's not usually how it works, though, right? Usually you're reacting to what the offense is doing, especially when an offense is coming off a bye week. They have time to throw some adjustments and wrinkles that you have not seen before. And I want you guys to think about the two other games this season where the defense started slow. Because it's basically three SEC games, right? It's Tennessee, Alabama, and now Auburn. Kentucky, we were fine, right? But if you go back to the Bama game, right? Bama had a bye week. Yes, so did we. So do we. But again, it's hard to adjust it's hard to prepare for what an offense is going to throw at you coming off a bye week. Because again, I think defense is more of the reactive side of the football. So Bama had a time offensively to put together a plan and make some adjustments. We did too offensively. We didn't take advantage of as much as Alabama did. We didn't execute as well as Alabama did. Give them credit there. And then Tennessee, guys, they had an entire offseason to make offensive adjustments specifically for us in that game. It was the third game of the year. They had not scored more than 17 points on a Georgia defense in the Josh Heupel era coming into this year, guys. And they've been doing basically the same things most of the time. And basically all 4-3 matchups before this one this year. But they did some things in that game offensively that were radically different than what they usually do offensively against Georgia. How is Glenn Schumann supposed to know that? How is he supposed to know they were going to go more max protect and keep 7-8 guys in at times to protect against our pass rush, which had decimated them the past couple matchups, and only send at times 2-3 guys out into routes? How are we supposed to know that what's going to happen? How are we know they're going to use the quick passing game in place of their run game in a way they hadn't before? Those were things they threw at us, wrinkles that we had to adapt to and adjust to in real time. Okay, so I think that's what it's about, guys. And you go back, Georgia Tech did the same thing last year, guys. We had every reason, if you go back to the Georgia Tech game last year, at the end of the season, to believe that Haynes King was either A, not going to play in that game coming off the shoulder injury, or B, just was not going to be able to throw the ball. They're going to have the same two quarterback system they had the previous several weeks leading into that. Guys, the week before they played NC State, before that Georgia Tech game last year, Haynes King could not throw the ball more than 3 yards on the line down the field, guys. I'm dead freaking serious. I watched that game, the NC State Georgia Tech game, and there was a play where it was an RPO. He pulls it, guy wide open like 5 yards, literally 5 yards on the field. He threw like 2 yards in front of him because he couldn't get the ball out to him. Georgia's coaches will watch that, and you're supposed to think Haynes King's going to be the full-time quarterback the next week. He's going to play every snap. He's going to be able to throw the ball down the field. Why would you think that? And you have to remember, guys, you only have 20 hours a week. The 20-hour rule is still in effect. It's not the NFL. 20 hours a week. And so you can't game plan for every possible contingency as much as we freaking try to. Trust me, there's only so much time, right? And sometimes you don't know what to prepare for because they haven't thrown the wrinkles out there at you before. So that's ultimately why I think you see these slow starts in some of these games. It's not every game, guys. Why is it every game? Look at the games that we have had these slow starts. Those teams have had extra time to prepare for us offensively. They've thrown some adjustments, some wrinkles at us, and we've had to adapt in real time. Which takes me to my fifth take here. Say what you want about the slow starts on defense, but no defensive staff in America is better at in-game adjustments than Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart, and company with this Georgia defense. Auburn, yes, definitely had a very good game plan to open this game. There are a few little minor things that did differently, guys. There's a few adjustments with motion, some jet sweeps, attacking the edges maybe in a way they hadn't really been doing a ton this year. They packaged together a couple of plays with similar motion, similar formations, and we're running constraints off of different looks, off of the same look. But once we had time to adapt and implement changes and figured out what they were doing differently, they had no answer. They had no answer, guys. Again, we held them to 50 total yards on 23 plays in the second half, 2.1 yards per play. Really, before that last garbage time drive when they were down 20-10 late in the game, it was 25 yards in the second half, guys. We completely flipped that game defensively. Again, they were running the same, like in the first half, they were on the same core, like 4 or 5 plays. Most of them were constraints off the same action, counters off of base action, right? And what our coaches showed once again, as they've shown time and time again on the defensive side of the football, is the ability to A, see what's happening, B, implement the changes, design changes, and implement the changes to neutralize what the offense is doing to have success. And then C, this is the overlooked part, guys, you got to be able to communicate it to your players in game. You have a short amount of time during halftime, and a lot of times you can't wait till halftime. You got to make these adjustments on the fly on the sideline, and you got to get the team together, and you got to communicate these things in a short amount of time. That is a skill in and of itself. And no one is doing all of that, the in-game adjustments, at as high of a level as Glenn Schumann and this Georgia defense. And I know those slow starts are frustrating, guys, and I'm not telling you to not be frustrated by them, but you also have to appreciate how this team, how this defense is able to respond once we see what these teams have had extra time to prepare for our defense. Once we see what they're doing, how we're able to adjust, adapt, and eventually shut them down. Holding Bama scoreless in the second half of that game, guys, right? Holding Auburn scoreless, holding them to 50 freaking total yards in the second half of that game. There's something to that, guys. You got to appreciate it. All right, number 6 here. So, speaking again of those defensive adjustments, just what were those defensive adjustments that Georgia was making in the second half of this game against Auburn? Now, again, the first half, they did a great job, okay, with their game plan. I also think we helped them a little bit in how we were aligned defensively, some of the defensive formations that we were using. Again, this is why I want to give Auburn credit. They saw this on tape. They anticipated us coming out in certain fronts against the type of offense they like to run and what we've done in the past against them, because we played them a couple times now, right, or Hugh Freeze. And so they had a plan for that. They were able to generate some really good angles on our defensive front and our linebackers as well, guys, and create some edge issues for us because of the way they were able to get angles on us and create space on the edge, right? That was a problem for us in the first half. So what did we do, guys? Well, we adjusted our front. The first half of that game, for most of the first half, we were living in a 3-down front. We were in our mint front a lot. What I mean by our mint front is Georgia's version of the tight front, which is it's 404. So you got 2 defensive tackles and 4 eyes. You got a 0 tech, nose guard, head up on the center, right? That's our tight front. The reason you do that against spread teams, it allows you to control the interior run game when you have smaller personnel on the field to defend the faster, shiftier, skill players that opposing offenses have on the field, right? So that's the idea. Auburn, they spread the field. That's kind of what Hugh Freeze does. They put skill players out. They have a bunch of really good skill players. Eric Singleton Jr., Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, right? They put these guys on the field. You have a quarterback that's mobile. You want to match that with athletes of your own on the defense side of the football. But Auburn also will try to run the ball at you downhill. So if you have lighter person on the field, you can be vulnerable to that. So how do you guard against that? You kind of compress the interior of the defensive line by stacking things in. And that's where our mint front comes into play. We have a 4-eye on the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle. On both offensive tackles, we have a player aligned on their inside shoulder and then a zero tech nose guard head up on the center, and that allows us to kind of control the interior run game. They anticipated us doing that because they've played us quite a bit, right? So what did they do? They attacked the edges. When we compressed our defensive front like that in a 404 and that mint front, that tight front, that gives them angles to crash down us, and it creates space on the outside. Well, Glenn Schumann and company saw what's happening, and they adjusted, right? So what did we do? We went to more 4-down fronts in the second half. We also opened the second half and spent maybe at least most of the third quarter and parts of the fourth quarter with a lot of single high looks. We got KJ Bolden in the box early and often in the second half. Why? To help with those perimeter runs. We still wanted to stay structurally sound on the interior against the interior runs, right? But we also needed more help on the outside, and they were creating angles. And also, when we were in the first half, coming out with a 2-high safety shell, we had these middle field open looks. Well, the safeties yet that can come screaming downhill. By the time you get there, you got some speedy guys that are catching these jet sweeps. They're on the corner getting 10, 15 yards, right? So how do you eliminate that? You bring a safety up in the box, right? Now you create angles for yourself defensively. And also in the process of doing that, now your edge player is not the contain guy. Your edge lineman is not the contain player he was in the first half, where he's putting a conflict between the quarterback run game or the mesh handoff and the fly sweep, which is what was happening in the first half. Because now KJ Bolden is essentially operating as that down safety, that box safety now is operating as our contain man out there, almost like the end man on the line of scrimmage in those situations. So now he is going to take the fly sweep, and we have our in-man line of scrimmage, our true defensive lineman, in a lot of cases like Quintavious Johnson, our jack linebacker, our 5-tech, right? Now he's able to crash on the quarterback or the mesh, the handoff there, and so we're able to do both things effectively. Eliminate the interior run game and eliminate the edge game, which they were gashing us with in the first half. Did they gash us a single time in the second half, guys? No, they didn't. They tried on their very first drive of the second half. They tried it. Same looks, same plays even. They were dashing us all in the first half for 10, 15 yards. Nothing, nada. They didn't go back to it. Why? Because we adjusted and they didn't have answers. They didn't have answers, guys. They were just hoping that we'd stay in that same look all game long, but that's not how Georgia works. We might not have the right look to open the game, but we're going to figure it out, guys. So that's really what we did from my standpoint, defense in the second half. It wasn't major adjustments, but they were effective adjustments that really limited what Auburn was doing. Because again, guys, there were only 4 or 5 plays in the first half, like base 4 or 5 plays, but they just had the angles, had a good plan. We adjusted, ended up having a better plan by the time the game was over, guys. And as I told you last week, if we could stifle the run game the way that we did in the second half, holding the 10 rushing yards on 11 carries, less than 1 yard a carry, if we could stifle their run game, Jackson Arnold just simply is not a proficient enough passer to beat us with his arm. And you saw it, guys. You saw it in the second half of that game on Saturday. All right, moving on here, guys. My 7th takeaway here. We also did a really good job of eliminating explosives, especially after the first 2 drives. And this was one of my keys to the game on that final episode I put out last week, giving you my prediction. Guys, we held them to 1 play of more than 20 yards in this game. Jackson had a 27-yard scamper. I think it was on 3rd and long, right? 1 single play of 20 or more yards. Now, Auburn, as I told you last week, it's not an explosive team. They're one of the least explosive offenses in the SEC, but they have explosive talent. On the outside, the quarterback's explosive. They have the ability to be explosive. They just haven't been explosive. So we cannot allow that to change in this game. Because what that did, we eliminate their explosive plays that forced them to be efficient rather than explosive, and it's a very inefficient offense. If we force them to have to drive the length of the field, drive after drive after drive, put together 10, 11, 12 play drives, or a 16-play drive like we did to seal that game, they are bound to screw up somewhere along the way and commit a drive-killing turnover, penalty, mistake, whatever. And they did, guys. That's what happens. Or miss a throw here. And again, I thought that'd be one of the keys to this game coming into it. And I do believe that it's ultimately a big part of why Georgia was able to win this game. They had a couple shots, did some explosive plays, but again, they're not efficient. Had a shot to Eric Singleton down the field, but not efficient. Couldn't make it happen. Could not convert there. All right, number 8. The Georgia pass rush, guys, finally started to show up a little bit. Now, look, I know the Auburn offensive line sucks. I know that they've been struggling all year. I know they've been struggling with penalties. They've given up 21 sacks on the year coming into this season, guys, which is dead freaking last in the entire country. But they knew that, and they had a week to prepare for that, right? Try to neutralize that weakness of theirs. So they did a good job of trying to stay ahead of the chains, some of the run game, get the ball out of Jackson Arnold's hands quickly to stay in second and short, third and short. In the first half, guys, they were consistently, what, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. When you have a team with a quarterback that can run the football, it's tough to stop them in those situations, and it was for us in the first half. But things started to change in the second half. Again, when we started to eliminate some of the things they were trying to get on the edges, we changed our front. We brought the safety on the box, and they weren't having success running the football on first down. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting into third long far more in the second half than they were in the first half. And all of a sudden, we were able to really start to affect Jackson Arnold with our pass rush. Now, we only had 1 sack, so I'm not telling you that we went wild with sacks. The sack numbers themselves weren't spectacular. You look at that and say, if you're just box score watch and say, well, Tyler, like, bro, they didn't do anything. Only had 1 sack on the game. But it's beyond the sack numbers, guys. We affected Jackson Arnold. We blew up a number of plays that were there. Now, would they have hit him? I don't know. But there are a couple plays on the field, like that one I mentioned, Eric Singleton on that deep post. They got a matchup on the safety that were there. Could have been a home run. Could have been a touchdown. Could have changed the complexion of that game. But why was that pass incomplete? Like, sure, Arnold missed him, but Quintavious Johnson was also in his lap. And I think forced him to throw this just a split second quicker than he wanted to, and affected Arnold just enough for him to overthrow that ball. So actually, I want to give a shout out to Quintavious Johnson. I've been hard on this guy. I've been consistently telling you that he's been awesome against the run. He has been. He was awesome against the run again on Saturday against Auburn, but he has not given us really anything rushing the passer. I thought he had his best effort of the season rushing the passer. There were a number of times where he was the guy affecting the passer, blowing up plays. That was great, man. Hey, I want our guys to succeed. I don't want to have to say negative things about them. So when you do well, I'll also spotlight that. I thought Quintavious Johnson did a great job. Elo Madozi also saw more and more snaps. Who's out there consistently on third downs. I do still like Quintavious Johnson out there on standard downs. I think he's the best jack linebacker run defender that we have, best at setting the edge. But he's not the best rusher we have. I think Chris Jones, I think Elo Madozi are both better rushing the passer. And I think they both got more opportunities on Saturday, and I think they both showed some positive signs being able to generate some pressure. Again, not necessarily getting the quarterback on the ground. Madozi had 2. He should have had 2. He had them twice. And one of them, like, he just let Arnold slip out of his grasp in the second half. But I saw some really strong signs from Elo Madozi. We need him to be an impact pass rusher. And it's starting to look like we're getting more comfortable with him. He's getting more comfortable with our defense. And that is huge potentially for the Georgia football team as we head down the stretch right near the back half of our schedule. All right, number 9, guys. Flip things over here. So talk about the defensive pass rush. Let's talk about the offensive line in pass pro. We were not perfect in pass pro in this game against Auburn. But I thought we did an admirable job protecting Gunner and giving Gunner enough time, especially some of the play action shots we were trying to take on first down and early downs, to push the ball down the field and create some of those plays that helped us win that football game in the second half. Especially, guys, when you consider the context here, considering the injury situation of the offensive line. Monroe Freeling has to come in basically, late in the first half, and he's on one ankle out there. Then you got Juan Gasson, who gets re-injuries in and out of the injury tips. And you got Bo Hughley, who's like your third-string tackle, and he's moving from one tackle from one side to the other side in game. All the youth on the right side of the offensive line, the location, this hostile environment at night without the benefit of the snap count, right? That's tough. And the opponent, which, guys, hands down, the best defensive front six, especially the best defensive line that we have faced all year, and maybe the best defensive front that we will see all during the regular season. I don't think that's a stretch, guys. So you consider all that context, I was very pleased with the effort of the offensive line. Yeah, they gave him a couple sacks. Yeah, there was one free runner in the first half where Gunner almost got decapitated. That was tough to watch, but that wasn't the rule. right? Like the rest of this team, like we picked ourselves up and said, you know what, let's just get better. Let's keep fighting. And on the road at night in that stadium, in that situation, guys, and honestly, for the first time all year, without much of a run game to slow down that rush, to keep us out of third and long, without much of a run game to help you out, I thought the offensive line did a really good job. An offensive line that I've openly had some real concerns about all year long, especially on the edges, and was concerned this week if Monroe Freeling wasn't healthy. I told you guys, I don't like this. Is like this my one biggest concern. The Auburn pass rush against our offensive line, our edges, without Monroe Freeling, that was a major concern. And again, they weren't perfect, but they did an admirable job and gave Gunner enough time in the second half, stepped up, gave him time to deliver the ball down the field and hit some big plays in the pass game to help us win that football game. And finally, guys, my last takeaway of this win over Auburn. Gunner's growing up, y'all. The guy is growing up in front of our eyes. This is the guy, let's not forget, guys, that half the fan base, probably some of you out there, and it's okay, like we're all emotional, we all care, we all are deeply invested. But this is a guy that half the fan base was ready to bury after the Austin P game. Let's not forget that, guys. I run a Georgia pod. Okay, I don't speak to the entire Georgia fan base, but I see all this on social media. I get a lot of emails. I get comments from you guys. I live in Athens, so I hear it all around town. Half the fan base, my dad, ready to bury this guy after the Austin P game. And that same guy is looking more and more with each passing game like the type of guy that we can win big with. More and more, guys. He's staying in the pocket more. He's staying in there longer. His pocket presence is improving. I lost my mind in a very good way because I have been critical of Gunner at times and try to be open and objective about some of the things that we're seeing. He hasn't been perfect, obviously. And one of the issues that we've seen is people say that he's not keeping his eyes downfield when he's running. I've been saying all year, it's not that he's not keeping his eyes downfield. He sees the guys when he pulls it to run. He's just choosing to not throw. He's playing too risk averse. Like makes his mind up too quickly that I'm going to run it come hell or high water. So sorry, voice almost. Let me get a little water here. Almost died there. I almost died in a good way when Gunner Stockton in the second half, I believe it was to Colby Young, right? He's scrambling outside the pocket, gets flushed outside the pocket, and it looks like he's tugging about to run it. Then the last second, right before he gets to the line of scrimmage, he sees Colby, and this time he usually sees him, but this time he not only saw him, he actually pulled the trigger and threw it to him, and it was a nice play, right? So those are things that you're seeing. He's growing. We have to remember Austin P, guys. That was his third career start. Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. There were some real causes for concern there. But if you watch every game since that point, no game's been perfect. There's still every game there's things he needs to improve on. But every game, if you look at it objectively with an open mind, you also have to admit he's improving on all those areas game in and game out and making me more and more of a believer with each and every game. Still not all the way there yet. No, he's not all the way there yet. He's still now what, in his seventh career start? So he's getting more experience. Now he's gone in two crazy road environments and won both those games, but things still needs to work on. I think he still needs to work on layering the football a little better. There was a throw, I think, was it Lucky? One of the tight ends, I think it was Lucky, was open in the second half in the fourth quarter. Gunner just put a little too much juice on it, threw the ball too flat, and that's tough, guys. Put it up over the linebacker and under the safety. But working on things like that, I think still being more consistent in the pocket. He's doing better there, but being more consistent there, staying in the pocket a little bit longer, continuing to be, if when he gets outside the pocket, if somebody's open, throw the football, continue to do those things. But hey, man, how could you not watch that game on Saturday night and say have a lot of good things to say about Gunner Stockton coming out of that game? He is, guys. He's getting better and better with every single game. And our coaching staff, if you don't think so, guys, our coaching staff put that game in that man's hands from the fumble on in a very hostile environment, guys. Without much of a run game all game long, we kept going to him early downs, throwing the football in the second half, and he freaking delivered. Now, should he have slid on that final touchdown to put us up 20-10? Yeah, probably. But how can you not love this guy? Laying out, man, putting it on the line for the team. That is Gunner Stockton personified, man. That's who this guy is. He's always been that, and now he's becoming more and more of a proficient player from that position. So I think we're seeing this guy grow up right in front of our eyes, guys. And by the end of the year, watch out. Gunner, watch out. This Georgia team at large, watch out. If we get healthy, continue to improve, can stay on the same trajectory that we've seen the first half of the season, watch out for this Georgia football team. But all right, guys, that is it for me here today on the Glory UJ podcast. And thank God the voice did last. A couple moments there where I thought I was about to disappeared, but we made it, guys. So thank you so much for first your patience and waiting to get this episode out a day late. I appreciate you guys, and thank you for checking this out. If you are a diehard Georgia fan, go ahead, subscribe right now, turn notifications on, like the video. All that, guys, is a huge help, and I greatly appreciate it. And I love to hear from you guys as well. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What are your big takeaways from this win over Auburn? But for now, guys, I'm out of here. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.